Hello there, and it's nice to be with you again. Good evening to you, wherever you're watching today. If you're watching, it's not evening yet. Good afternoon. If you're watching elsewhere, it's not even afternoon yet. Good morning. But where we are today, it's good evening, and it's so nice to be with you again. It's the Way Show. My name is Wole. Um, if it's the first time you're watching, do remember to subscribe to the show, okay? And also do remember to check out our past editions of past episodes, and obviously like the episodes you've seen. Okay, so it's another Sunday. It's been a wonderful yet very cold weekend where we are broadcasting live from London. How's it been with you? Hope it was a wonderful weekend for you yourself. Today, I am joined all the way from Berlin in Germany by someone who is a broadcaster, a journalist, an author, a speaker, and he has also added another feather to his cap. He has brought us his first novel. Well, I'm tempted to say novel, but it's a children's book. Okay, he's going to explain much later, which obviously talks about Nigerian culture, zeroing in on Lagos, where quite a lot of us grew up. Okay, so I'm talking about writer and journalist Lolade Adewuyi, all the way from Berlin today, joining us on the Way Show. Lolade, thank you for joining us. Before you say anything, let me try out my German. Guten Abend.
Guten Abend, wie geht's?
Danke, gut, gut, gut.
Das ist gut, das ist gut. Ich bin gut.
That's all. Écoute ton.
Kein Problem. I am trying to. I'm just learning, so it's an interesting language, and but it's
Yes.
pretty tough to deal with, you know. But,
yeah, I remember as part of when I was a journalist back in Nigeria, as part of being versatile, we also went to Alain Francais by the French embassy and also the Goethe Institute by the German embassy back then. So I was able to pick one or two words in Germany. So I tried to brag about it. After the two words, that's it. I'm done. Okay.
which is fine.
The next thing I know in German is probably Mannschaft, the German national team. That's it.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
I do speak French too. I spent time at Alliance Française learning the language, and now learning German. I lived in Russia for a year studying, so I mean a little Russian.
Wow.
Languages. Was born in northern Nigeria, speak some Hausa, so.
So you're a man of many languages then.
I wish I could speak much better than I do, but it's fair to say I get by, sure.
Okay. Thank you, Lolade, for taking time to join us on the show today. So wonderful for you to join us.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Lolade, I know we're going to be talking quite a lot about books today and obviously about culture. But before we go into that, I know in one of the roles you've undertaken in your life, you were also the editor, the senior editor at goal.com.
Yes.
And so before we delve into books and culture, I am always very tempted to talk about football. How are you feeling after that 2-0 defeat to Mourinho's Spurs? I'm sorry to rub that in there, but I'm sorry, but football is a passion. It's our passion, all right. So
it is
normal we talk about it.
Yes, football is a lifelong passion. It's been also something that's given me a career. Working at goal.com. I started out as a journalist at OVATION magazine, and then moved to Accra, Ghana to work for OVATION, and we started a weekly news magazine. And after writing entertainment, I eventually just moved naturally into writing football, which has been really good, and then went to Tell Magazine and became a senior assistant editor there, member of the editorial board, youngest member of the editorial board at that time, and then still writing football, and then joined Goal.com as chief editor for Nigeria when he set up in 2012. So football has helped me see the world. Been to 3 FIFA World Cups: South Africa 2010, Brazil 2014, and Russia 2018. So. And then supporting the Arsenal, which is like supporting the Super Eagles these days. You really don't win much, So today's game was really tough. I caught bits and pieces of it because we were out earlier in the evening, and then came back home and tried to see part of the second half, and then I saw the second Spurs goal, which was really shocking, from defensive position, and then they countered and scored, But I thought Arsenal really played well, playing away from home and shaving the bulk of possession. But you have to give it to the Spurs. They were very dedicated to defending, and they made use of 2 opportunities they had. And this is... we've come out again with another loss, but I don't know. It's really tough to take. It's really tough to take. Yeah.
And in a few words, what do you think of Mikel Arteta? Do you think he's probably going in the right direction? Do you see him being the person to take Arsenal to where they were before under Arsene Wenger?
It's difficult to predict the job of a coach as it is. Mikel Arteta came in the middle of last season, and we managed to go far and won the FA Cup title, and started the season with a Community Shield against Liverpool, and you thought we're really in it for the title this season. But it's football the way it is. I don't know if he's going to be there for long. I wish he were. I really wish him the success that he could deserve. But the way football is, and you are judged by your last results, your series of results. Interestingly, we are doing well in the Europa League, but you'd say the competition is still. Outside of England, the competition is not as tough. But when you come to the Premier League, where we should be competing, and then we are, struggling against Leeds and losing to Aston Villa, and winning against Manchester United, but then dropping points ever since. It's just a roller coaster of emotions, and sometimes, as a fan, you don't know but also as an analyst, you feel, well, there's a time to build, and maybe Arteta could really challenge in future with one or more, But you also look at the forward line and you say, these guys are really experienced and they've been playing together for a while now, and they should be doing better. So what's going on? And you can see the dedication. It's not as if the dedication is not there on the field. But I think we've been unlucky in the Premier League, but I wouldn't say more than that now. It's tough. It's really tough for fans, and I'm sure for the coach as well.
I totally understand that. So let's go to why you're here today, and that's about the children's picture book, the Lost Little Masquerade. Okay,
yes.
I must say, and I must confess, I've not really read the book, but I've read some excerpts from the book, and I've read quite a lot of review about the book, and the review I got was very interesting, very positive. Okay, and I sat back and said, why did you decide to write a book? I mean, if you decided to write a book, why children's picture book? I mean, why did you think about that?
It is interesting. I never thought my first book would be a children's picture book, but I think it's where I am in my life. I am a father to a beautiful 6-year-old daughter, smart and hungry for knowledge, about the world, about herself. And we moved to Germany last year, September, 1 year now. And we've come to a new culture, a new country, a new way of life, a new experience. And where I've now, had to spend more time with her. My wife, she's studying for her PhD here in Berlin at Humboldt University. So we moved to join her. And so it's now given me this opportunity because for a while, my wife was away studying in South Africa and then started her PhD here. And so we are apart. And so my daughter was with her grandparents, my wife's parents in Ile-Ife while I was in Lagos. I would visit every other weekend, spend time. But now we've been together. And then during this COVID period, we at the early days of COVID, we really spent time. And the libraries were closed. So, normally would go every Friday to pick up 4 or 5 books for her and read over the next week, over the weekend and through the week, and then return it and get new books. And of course, they're all books written by Europeans or Americans or Australians, or even Swedes, translated, and Germans translated into English, or German books. So I began to see these books and the patterns, the stories they told, and I began to get, become really open to children's books and the way they read, the stories they tell. And when the first COVID lockdown started, it was a difficult period. We couldn't get new books, and so I started to tell stories to my daughter about my life, about the stories my parents told me, my mom, my dad, the folk songs from back home, and so after a while, we kind of these stories ran dry, and so I started to now look for, and she started to ask them, she found them really interesting. And then I needed to start telling real stories of my own life, how I grew up I was born in the North, my first day of school, being expelled after fighting, so all these interesting stories. And then more and more, I started telling stories about work experiences, that could, fit into a child's worldview. And, somewhere in my subconscious, it came back, this story of the Lost Little Masquerade that happened actually in 2009 when I covered the Eyo Festival in Lagos. It was my first Eyo Festival, because the Eyo Festival doesn't happen often. It is a celebration of the life of Lagos, an eminent Lagos citizen. So it happens, it's staggered. It can be 10, 20 years before they hold the next one. So we were pretty, lucky. I'd come back from Ghana, where I was based as a correspondent for Tel Magazine, and I was in Lagos at that period. And so I was able to attend this festival. And a little boy walked up to me after the festival. He had been lost. He couldn't find his family, his group, and he was dressed in your uniform. And he asked if I could help him find his brother. So I then helped him find his brother in real life. So I'm telling my daughter this story several years later, and then I decided that, hey, this could be a really good story to share with the world, especially we live in a city now where there are no African stories in the children's book section, or dark stories in that children's section. And I've also been volunteering with the Library of Berlin in the Pankow district. I started an English language book club, So I'm understanding that there's a diversity. There's an interest in creating diversity, and if they have these books, they could really love them also. So I spoke with my friend who is the illustrator, Abolo Eshobayo, who interestingly was the artist that created the Fela statue in Lagos.
Yeah, yeah, in Ikeja.
Yes, in Ikeja. So he decided to take it on as a challenge. It is a first ever illustration. So
Wow.
he hand painted every page of this book. He hand painted the. So he had also interestingly worked over or about on the Ayo festival in the past. So it was easy for him to conceive and to understand this story. And so we had to really tell it in a way to interest children as much as possible.
Hmm. And for those watching, Ayo is a particular a masquerade festival that's actually peculiar to Lagos. Okay, so it's some historians have said it's more like a predecessor to the real carnival. Back in the days, because it was first staged in Lagos in about 1854 for the then Oba Akitoye. When Oba Akitoye, just to commemorate the life of the former Oba Akitoye. So like Lolade said, it's not it's a rarity. So your festival usually comes alive when we're celebrating the demise of a king or the installation of one of the chiefs in Lagos State.
Yes.
Lolade, I know the chief purpose of you wanting to write this book obviously was the push by your lovely daughter. Going now looking at Nigerian culture, there's this argument that, and I don't mean in a bad way. I am Nigerian, proud to be one. That we don't read. Okay, we do not read, and there's this love for technology in Nigeria now, where everybody probably sits on the social media, Instagram, Twitter, to do whatever, do their business on. So, how have you been able um, to sell your book, not financially now, for people to accept it, to say, you know what, we need to go back to what we did when we were all young, or younger. We read quite a lot of books. We visited the library, not necessarily when it's time for examination. It was a must then. Our fathers would send us go to library, go to Yaba library. I remember that there was because I grew up in Yaba area, Onika area, so we had a library that we could go to, to sit down and read different things, and all that is in very short demand now. So have you people been able to receive your book? As a first time writer, and obviously brilliant book, but and pictures by a very brilliant person. So if you could just explain to us what the acceptance has been like.
It's interesting how the story has, really gingered conversation. One of the first people who gave me feedback, he lives in Finland now, and he
Wow.
told me, left a review, a message on my Instagram. He said he could totally relate with this book, and that because when he was a little boy, his grandmother took him. He's from Lagos, and so his grandmother took him along the route of the festival of the Eyo, because he was going to be also an Eyo boy, a little Eyo boy, so that he wouldn't miss his way home. And this just showed me that I really touched a nerve, and that this is a story that is realistic, and of course, because it happened truly, which I've fictionalized, I've made, instead of myself as a journalist, I made it a policewoman, and also to have a gender balance, the boy and his father, and then the main character as a policewoman. But the reception generally has been interesting. I think, of course, we need to do more to get it into the into the consciousness of more people. But so far, I've been told of people ordering, even members of my the house fellowship of my church in Lagos, my publisher said they ordered for 5 copies so that they could give to the children of members for Christmas as a Christmas gift, So so far, I think we are getting the attention we need, but we will definitely push more over the next few weeks. I would love for it to be a Christmas book, a book that people would buy for Christmas gifts and for their family members and for their children, for their nieces and nephews across the world. I'm trying as much as possible to ensure that the Amazon paperback copy is set in the next week. And then also I'm going to be doing autographed copies, because now we can't do book readings here in Berlin, and then I can't travel to Nigeria at the moment. So I'll be able to sign autographed copies for people and ship it to them, So even now, I've already done a few copies, by shipment. So, but I think generally so far, people are looking at this story and saying that, okay, it can resonate, but on the wider level, or the general level of children's books in Nigeria, like an interview I granted to School.com, an educational startup that reaches schools, that we need stories that reflect us, children's stories that reflect Nigeria, that reflect our culture, and then have the messages that can, resonate with our children. And that's what I've been able to do with this book, and to not just offer a story, but also a quality illustration about it, which is that, when you buy the book, when you have a copy, it's like having an artwork by a master artist, because you're holding the Lost Little Masquerade and you are seeing all these, beautiful illustrations, and looking through it all, you see the first page, just this is Lagos landscape. We come the few landmarks into it, So, and you see, you're not just holding a storybook or a children's book, you're holding a collection of great artworks, of great art by a master artist and an emerging storyteller, So I think people need to give it an opportunity, because someone, my wife's sister, we had a conversation yesterday, and she said, and the children's books they are also able to buy in Nigeria are foreign made, are foreign, are imported. So we need, I also, my publisher, we're trying to push it as much as possible for people to see that we have quality children's books. They are available, and we should support Nigerian stories. And because one of the things we find is the proliferation of foreign stories. Like you said, people don't read as much as they did, but now the content that our children have access to are pretty foreign. Even for us too, there's not been a lot of kids content on TV that is local. The only kids content that we look forward to watching as kids were Tales by Moonlight on NT.
Tales by Moonlight, yes.
Apart from that, the only thing we were able to watch was Sesame Street, CBB, and all these foreign shows. And even till now, there's a dearth of kids content for children. Nollywood is creating content that is basically for adults, and not looking at the children's market, which is really huge. You see several YouTube channels for children that have their subscriptions and views in the billions, because children from all over the world are tuned in. But only a few people have been able are creating actively content for Nigerian children, for African children, and even books for African children. when I was in Lagos, I would always go into the bookstore, into the shop. There was a shop close to my place in Ojudu to buy books for my daughter whenever I travel to go visit her in Ile-Ife. But the books were much older for her age at that time, but they were African, and I tried to buy and tell and read to her. But so now I think we need to have a consciousness of creating content for children, for Nigerian children, for African children, stories that they can relate to, and I hope that parents and schools will be able to give this book an opportunity to thrive.
And Shade Adewuyi just made a very valid point there. Shade is, I don't know where Shade is watching from. Thank you for your comments, Shade. Says Nigerians need Nigerian content. Absolutely. And I think I totally agree with Shade, because I remember growing up, we had to read, even as far back as uni, we had to read about Shakespeare. We read, quite a lot of that. But I was really very fortunate also to have read Chinua Achebe, the great Chinua Achebe, Cyprian Ekwesi, and Professor Larutimi. I was, privileged to read, and obviously acted in some of his the plays that he wrote, which was really very good, because it made us think more about our African culture, And quite recently, my daughter in school in England here came back and said, because I already told her about Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, Things Fall Apart, and came back home one day and said, you know what, Dad, we're reading about Things Fall Apart. I was so excited. In school in England, they're reading about Things Fall Apart. I was really very touched. I felt really proud that to be an African, to be a Nigerian, that my daughter, although I've told her severally about these books because I read it, and we still have some of them here that I actually brought from Nigeria when I went to Lagos, obviously showed them. So it was a thing of joy that they're beginning to reconnect with their culture. The fact that they are based abroad, they were born abroad, don't mean you should lose your culture, even though you are expected to embrace whatever culture you meet, where you are, but don't lose your roots, so to say.
True.
So
before you ask your next question, I just want to say that recently this year we ordered for a book we've ordered for 2 books in Yoruba language for my daughter. Yes, my wife ordered the first one, which also part of these things that opened my eyes to this missing link. It's a book written by a German writer. It's a children's book, but he's also, I think he's self-published, and he translated it into several languages. And one of the languages he did, one of the editions is English, in German and Yoruba. And because my wife saw this, she was really excited and ordered this book. And after that, we ordered another one by a Nigerian based in the UK, titled There is Rice at Home, in Yoruba, the Yoruba edition, Iresi Wanile, and my daughter loves reading it. And so I think many people abroad, or maybe it's an opportunity for us to be able to, whenever we see books like in our language or in our culture, to purchase them and and let the children experience them. It's really important. It gives them a sense of belonging, a sense of seeing themselves in the book. And I think it can inspire when you see someone who looks like you, who talks like you, who eats the same food that you eat, who is from your city or your country, in a book and on TV, and but as much as possible in a content for our children to consume. So it's really important that we're able to do and see books like Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart for the children, and which they are more their stories, especially Things Fall Apart and the Showing Cars, and they wrote for older people, for older readers. But by the time children, especially who are born abroad, get to see those books, they've already been formed and maybe they've been made to feel a certain way about their culture until they see it in books later on in life. But so as much as possible, if we get more early childhood books to the children, we can help inspire them in diverse ways.
So we're going to go on a quick short break, Lolade, and when we come back, I would just want us to touch on why don't we have quite a lot of books for children, especially that relates to our culture, that tells about our culture, that tells about our tradition. So that will be our next question. But let's just go on a quick break, and when we come back, we discuss that. Welcome back, and it's still the Way Show. And if it's first time you're watching us, please don't forget to subscribe to the show. Okay, and I've been chatting with Lolade Adewuyi, who is a writer, a journalist based in Berlin, Germany, who is writing a very interesting children pictorial book called the Lost Little Masquerade. Um, Very interesting book. Like I said, I've not had that time to read the book. Not really at the time, not being able to lay my hands on the book. But I've read some brilliant reviews about this book, especially apart from the written words itself, also the brilliant artwork that is in the book. And just like Lolade said, very brilliant, right? It's by someone really very talented. So, Lolade, before we went on the break, I was talking about books, culture, and African culture and tradition. Why is it that we don't have um, a lot of that sitting around? Fine, we do have, at the moment, we've got our Nollywood, which is far, it's taken over the world. I mean, we see plays in Yoruba, in Igbo, in Hausa, broken, what have you. And our music is all over the place anyway. So why is it that our books, it's more like struggling. I mean, after Professor Wole Soyinka in 1986, Nobel Prize for Literature, Chimamanda came obviously with our brand, the Yellow Sun or whatever. But we don't seem to have something that's targeted to our children, our young ones, those ones that are going to take the baton from us when we finally bow out, continuing our culture and tradition. Why is this so?
From I'm not an expert, so I mean, as much as it is, but I can hazard some guesses. The thing is, with children's books, with children's content, like I said earlier, we seem not to take them too seriously. You look at Nollywood, the power of Nollywood, the power of the stories all over the world, but there's a gaping hole for children's content, for children's films, for children's stories in Nollywood. The bulk of Nollywood is adult stories, adult-facing stories, and I first realized when my sister who is a medical doctor and has 2 daughters. When she mentioned it, I didn't have a child then, and she mentioned that she couldn't allow her daughters watch many of the films in Nollywood because, and I wondered why. And then she said the adult content, the adult stories, they had themes that weren't friendly for children, and early exposure for children to Nollywood stories could uh, damage their minds and alter their minds. And I started thinking that it's true, truly, these stories are for old people. Older people who can deal with the stories, really. But we are not consciously creating these stories or channels that can. If you look at the uh, powerful the channels, companies like DSTV that have Africa Magic. There's all these Africa Magic Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, Africa Magic Epic, and the competitors. All of them create all these Africa Nollywood-based channels, but none of them is a Nollywood-based channel on children's stories. And so we think we overlook the demographic of children, the children's, meanwhile, it is the children that control the remote control at home.
And that's true.
They once your child is watching Cartoon Network or or any other children's programming, you can't collect the remote control from them or they'll cry. But we are not consciously looking as a continent, as a country, as a Ministry of Information for content that will fit into the lives of our children. But we'll focus only on the Africa Magic, on content for our elderly people, for older people, So I think it's also the same with the books, the literary section of the educational industry. The content, the books are for young adults and upwards, but children's books are overlooked, which is a shame that we are losing, and then letting the content that children read, the books that children read, be imported. Most of the books they read are imported. And now I live in Berlin, and the library district where I live, and every time I step into the library, there are so many options for children to from age 2, from even age from 6 months, books with children's books without words, just images for the children to look through from age 6 months till they are 13. Different types of books for children, which we don't see, you never find in Nigeria. I think it's a shame that we've not looked at the children's books in market as really unique and a diverse market that is open for people to for authors also, and for publishers. I think it's we've overlooked it, but also I think maybe publishers are not encouraged because of piracy of books in Nigeria, which is really prevalent. So it could be that, but it could also be that authors are not also encouraged to work with children. But it's we are missing a lot in the children's books market if we do not create content for children for children from as young as 6 months to be able to access books, picture books, and stories that are easy for them to digest. I think we are missing a lot by not broadening that market.
Yetunde Tagurum. I'm sorry, Yetunde. I hope I got your name, surname very correct. Sorry if I missed it. Really sorry. I apologize. So she said, and she made a very valid point. Book clubs are a good way to get people reading. I know back in the days when I was in secondary school, we had, reading clubs in secondary school. So after schools, you could have after school club, you read and what have you. So it actually helped us quite a lot
Mm.
there. And do you also share the same thoughts with what Yetunde has said here that maybe we need to revive book clubs, reading clubs in primary schools, in
Definitely,
secondary schools to get up? Yeah,
definitely,
okay.
definitely. I think it's the way to go. Book clubs help to get people to, because you find out that when you read together, when you share ideas, I mean, and you come together to sit down and share ideas about books that you've read, it helps you to find new themes in those books that you may have missed. So the only time, I mean, the only time we usually get to discuss books were in literature classes, which is
Hmm.
studying for exams and studying to impress your teacher and studying to pass, which is the world we live in has evolved. There are several book clubs, and in Western countries, and even in Lagos, I used to attend a book club in VI more than 15 years ago, before I moved to Ghana, and then lost touch with them. But we were able to, I think they did invite even professors from UNILAG to come discuss some of these books with us. I remember a certain who happened to then become the dean, I think, of the Faculty of Art in UNILAG, come to discuss book. And at that book club. So the book clubs get you to discuss books outside of passing exams just for the pleasure of it. So book clubs can definitely help. And one of the things I did when I moved to Berlin was to volunteer and volunteer with the library district in Pankow, and tell them I'd love to work with them on anything. And when we talked about it, they said they would love if I could start an English book club. And so we started an English book club at the Bettina von Arnim Library in the Pankow district. And one of the first books we read was the international hit, the Becoming by Michelle Obama. And even
Mm.
people who had not read it showed up just so that they could hear the perspective of the people who had read it, and so that they could decide to go read it. So book clubs enable you, especially if you're interested in books. And so there's another thing. Are you interested in books? Are you too busy in a world of gadgets and all? Are you too busy to even stop to read? So, but where people love to read and want to talk about what they've read, a book club is definitely the way to go.
Shadi Adewuyi also mentioned that, in our opinion, people are lazy to read, and so movies are more pronounced, and no attention is paid to children. She also mentioned that public library services are another avenue to encourage reading. But the thing is, um, I, I know the last time I went to Lagos, and obviously to my hometown in Ondo State. I hardly saw libraries open, and even when I saw libraries that were open, I hardly saw people there. Even the books in the library was more like as old as probably my dad or my grandfather. So I was watching a few months ago. I was doing a research on funny enough on libraries and reading, and I saw some libraries in some schools, and I was really ashamed, you know, because I couldn't believe that. I mean, what I saw as a library was shameful. Yeah, so it tends you now tend to believe what Shadi said in our comments that fine, people are lazy, but what's the government doing? What's the Ministry of Information, Ministry of Tourism, Culture, Youth, Education? What are they doing to enrich our library, to reintroduce, you know? the reading culture in our people, in our children, not just reading to pass WAEC or GS, CSE or JAM, reading to better yourself, reading to make yourself a better person. Because I know quite a lot of us, when we were in school, we read a lot. I mean, some of the books we read made us better people, in one way or the other, because we were able to borrow leaves from characters in the books we read, you know. And even if people are lazy now, thank God for Amazon, thank God for ebooks. If you don't want to read paper book, you can download on the ebooks, and if you want it read to you in a very nice voice,
Mm.
you can. So I think it all boils down to we reintroducing that culture, reading culture to our psyche, to our people, and obviously making sure that the government provides the right environment. I mean, it will be useless if we don't have libraries in each local government. Who says we can't have a library in each local government in Nigeria? It's very possible. It's just people, politicians, and the government misplacing their priorities. So,
I believe so too.
yeah, go on, Lolade.
Yes. It's I think it's we as a people, as a country, we have missed our way when it comes to knowledge and these resources that should provide knowledge for young people, for our country. We celebrate what should not be celebrated, and I think the popularization of the Nigerian society has led to a place where people do not really see what should be. I remember one particular article a few years ago, more than 10 years, 10, no, more than 15 years now, written by a certain a young man back then. I think he moved to the UK. His name is Damola Awoyokun. I think that article should still be on the web, on the internet somewhere, and he titled it um, the Lagos Ibadan Expressway Churches and the Next Nigerian Einstein, or something like that. And he said that there are more churches on the Lagos Ibadan Expressway than there are libraries in the whole of, was it Lagos or Nigeria?
Wow.
And how do we intend to create or to build the next Wole Soyinka or even an Einstein if we do not have, if we have more religious institutions and mosques and churches than libraries? And it's a symptom of our society's decadence that we depend more on other means than seeking for knowledge and creating avenues for our children to learn, to read, to study, to even, learn new things about the world around them, which is, I think, is a society-wide, because if people, parents themselves cannot, one personal example that I faced, there was when I lived in Ojodu, and there was an NGO that had a community center that rented two storerooms, two shops, and had a reading center for the community. And as a lover of books, of literature, as a journalist, I walked up to them one day and asked, how could I help? And he said, however I could. And I said, can I donate books? He said, fine, they would love it. And I went around, so I went to my sister's house. I asked her youngest kids, last two kids, that did they have any books that they didn't use again that could, help this community library in my neighborhood. And so they packed all their books, their textbooks and storybooks, and they gave to me. And I packed these books and took it to this community center and gave it to them. And you could see the joy that they had. And, they made me take pictures with the book, and I know they put in their reports that they got donations. But you know what? A few months later, this place was gone because they didn't have funding to continue. And there were children from that because there are many poor people, and they had children who would come in after school during the holidays to this community place and read. But this place closed down, and there was no uproar from the community to try and keep it going. So I think it's a failure of our society. If a community center, an NGO was running this community center, and you as a community whose kids needed this place would not try as hard as possible to keep it running. And so it's a general malaise. The government has failed. There are no libraries. Nope. And the people are not asking questions. Why do we not have libraries for our children? Why are even the schools, the libraries in the schools, why are they poorly funded? Meanwhile, but education is generally poorly funded. ASU is on strike for months. The NUT is struggling, and when they get into office, when the NUT, the leadership, the people get into the leadership of the NUT, they do not try, to even let's fight for libraries. They are fighting for salaries and for other things, because these salaries are not even paid. So libraries are the last thing on the mind of people. So it's a problem. It's really terrible. I think maybe individual efforts, but we also need, maybe the billionaires in society to say, instead of putting money, when they say philanthropy, can we find billionaires who their philanthropy would be, I just want to set up libraries across states, across towns, instead of saying we're just giving you bags of rice that you will finish. Let us build you libraries for your children to help your children grow out of poverty, and then they can change our society from the ground up. We need a mindset change in order to really get back and get books into the minds of people and get libraries out. Otherwise, we'll keep growing churches and mosques and politicians, but we will not grow readers, and books and publishers and authors will continue to be discouraged from writing the great books that could help our children.
Spotty Adewuyi is from Canada, and she did mention about something I actually wanted to ask you as we round up. You've done a brilliant book showcasing the culture of Lagos, showcasing tourist attractions of Lagos, showcasing the positive sides of Lagos. Have you had anyone from the Lagos state government even email you to say, boy, this is what you're doing is good. We'd like to collaborate with you. Not about money now. We just would like to collaborate with you. You're doing this, championing Lagos, in the eyes of the world. You're not talking about NSAS now, whatever happened that time, but you're trying to showcase Lagos and showcase our culture as a Yoruba people, as Lagosians. Have you had any emails, any calls, anything at all?
Not yet. Maybe it's too early, but not yet. I haven't received anything or any looking from. But maybe because I'm not based in Lagos and I'm not pushing it to. But my publisher did say he's trying to send it to the Commissioner of Tourism in Lagos and to see if they can do, what a government would do with it. I don't know. It's my hope that it gets into the consciousness of somebody high up, and they decide, this is a really good work of art. This is a great story about our state, and then they adopt it for something. But for now, nothing. I do hope we are able to reach young children. That's, so children can read and have a broader mindset. and see themselves in these two in this story. That's my as an author, as a writer, that this is my hope. But if the government decides, oh, and we would love for more people to read it, it would be perfect. It would be great for the book. It would be great for my publisher, you know. But for now, we haven't heard anything yet.
And do you see this book, being in the curriculum for primary schools, junior secondary schools, a reference point for culture in schools?
It's a mixed thing, because it came to my attention that once your book gets into the school curriculum, then it becomes pirates wish list or something.
Exactly.
Because your pirates will suddenly steal and say, "Oh, this is," and then they jump in there,
exactly.
and you become popular and never get anything back in terms of return. Whatever happens, when you do a work of art, it becomes no longer yours. You can't say, especially when it's good, art outgrows, or a great art becomes bigger than its author, and gives its author or its painter or its creator a big name. But I would love that this book becomes big somehow and brings fame and hopefully fortune. But my original intention was to write a story for my daughter, and to also, I have to also say, to show her that in this society that we've moved into, we could also have representation. And one of the good things was my community had a film festival in September and invited me to read the book. And so I was able to stand in front of everybody, my wife and my daughter watching, and I read the book in front of the whole, community, and so that my daughter would see that, hey, we might have come from another country, but we are not inferior. We've got stories, and we can make a name. We can be respected in this country. So this is my was original thought. Let me do this story. Let me do this thing so that if it gets picked up by the library of Pankow in Berlin, then my daughter can say her father's book is in the library. But whatever else comes out of it,
it's a plus.
it will be an addition. But I think I've achieved one of, so that my daughter sees representation, that she is coming to a new society, but she has a voice and she cannot be intimidated, because this is who her father is and this is what he's done. And then she has also started to say, I would like to write something. I would like to write a story. So I think for me, this is my most important. And any other thing the government does anything, if it wins an award or something, it will be an icing on the cake.
Thank you so much, Lolade, and hopefully we will be able to get a signed copy at some point. We'll be on the lookout for it when it comes out on Amazon. We will be. I will definitely be contacting you to have a privileged signed copy from you. So to give to my children here. To give to my children here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. Really, it's a great conversation, and I haven't talked about it much like this before, so it's really good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I say hello to your beautiful daughter. Thank her for this opportunity. Other people are able to now tap into it because of this brilliant little girl. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that was our chat with Lolade Adewuyi, who is an author whose book, The Lost Little Masquerade, it's just come out. Be on the lookout for it. It's going to be on Amazon very soon, so please be on the lookout for it. So hopefully our book will go places. He just said that he wrote the book for his little daughter, but hopefully that book will win awards, get recognized, and who knows, maybe it will be on the big screens at some point in the future. So thank you so much for everyone that's commented today. Shade Adewuyi, thank you so much. Please tell somebody about this platform, about this the Way Show, about this program. Please also remember to subscribe. Sporty Adewuyi all the way from Canada. I don't know where you are watching from, Shade Adewuyi, but Sporty Adewuyi, thank you for your contribution, brilliant contributions. Yetunde, thank you also for your contribution. Wale Adewuyi, thank you for calling on the show. Bumi Yomo, thank you. Expasa. Hello, how are you? Thank you for joining the show. And every one of you that's joined the show, that's watching the show today, made comments on the show, thank you so much. Sorry if I cannot read out your comments at this time. Thank you for joining the show. Please remember what I said. Subscribe to the show and tell someone about the show, right? Tell someone to tell someone about the show. Subscribe. Next week, we'll be coming up with another edition. We'll be bringing someone, obviously, very interesting to talk about their life and what they are doing and how to inspire other people. My name remains Wole, and thank you. Special thanks to my colleague and partner, Yomi, who is behind the scenes to making sure you can see me and you can hear me, and we can also see and hear Lolade, our guest today. Hopefully, you get to see ourselves next week. Do have a wonderful week ahead, and have a very good night. And please do stay safe. Thank you.